into that parking lot. In fact, Mr. Bell, the owner of the building, actually senior, he passed away, but he actually has a second service over there. I guess at one time they had a vending cart on that side. If you look there, there's actually a whole setup, for power for that. But I have no intentions of that. I'm just, I just want to come in, buy clams and get in and out on a daily basis pretty quick, and, I'm going to do what I can to work with him, basically.
So as I understand it, then there already is a barrier there. It probably is on the property you're considering leasing and buying. And the Chinese restaurant folks are actually using a portion of your property. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. He has the fence that's kind of runs flashways there partially, and then he has picnic tables. And the fence is right, literally 3 feet from his building.
Yeah,
Walter, almost none of that came through. It got very broken up.
yeah, Walter, if you could,
Like I said, I want to work.
if you turn off the visual,
Yes.
that usually helps with getting things clear.
Sasha, how do I turn off the visual? I'm not very good at this.
There should be like a camera button on the bottom left corner of the screen.
Okay.
There we go.
Does that work better?
Yep, let's try that now.
Yeah, well, basically he has a fence there that's dividing the two pieces, but it's literally 3 feet off the end of his building. And like I said, he's got grease traps there and a dumpster that they access from, our side of the parking lot to get at it, which, like I said, I will work with them, on that particular matter, and once I know the schedule, obviously I can make it work.
Okay, I understand that better then. All right, good. All right. If nobody does anyone have anything else? Then we're going to go into the traffic. First thing I'd like to do is get one clarification, Max, and it has to do with something that you sent us. You said that you believe the MDOT banning of tractor trailers, or not allowing tractor trailers, would also apply to clammers bringing their boats in behind their pickups or vehicles. Is that really the case?
So from what I understood when I talked with, which one signed this permit? I think it was Brian Douglas.
Yes.
He said that essentially, yes, they can bring their car, but it's not like they can have a trailer or boat attached onto the boat or onto the car, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That's what I was told through the phone call. But Walter's talked with them as well. I don't know if he had the same discussion from them.
I actually had the same discussion, but as you know, he's kind of hard to understand on the phone. He, we had some talk about it, but the way I took it, he said it was, all right. And it wasn't the same, because the tractor trailer is 53 feet long, just the box. And he said he didn't consider that, but maybe I'm confused. Like I said, I had a very hard time talking to him on the phone. He's got a really strong accent.
Yeah, for those who aren't aware, the individual we're talking about has a very thick Scottish accent. I'm seeing some head shakes already.
It was really difficult.
That's something I could probably ask through an email if he can give a clarification for that then.
Right, yeah. He called me back and basically told me he was giving me a courtesy call, that there was some concerns, but he didn't have a problem with what I was doing as far as the DOT, because I told him exactly what we planned on doing, and I didn't think it was an issue, but like I said, I did have a hard time understanding him completely on the phone.
Okay, I think that's an important point to get clarification on, well, for a couple of reasons. One, I don't know how reasonable it is to expect the clammers to drop their boats off before they come to sell their clams. And if that is an expectation, we're probably going to be disappointed a lot of the time when they don't do that. But the other part of it is the impact on traffic is much higher, a vehicle with a boat trailer. I mean, basically 2 for 1, less maneuverability. The odds of somebody getting stacked up back out onto Route 1, which is the safety concern, goes up dramatically. So that really needs some level of clarification.
I personally don't think that would ever happen. That's my opinion, just based on the fact that there's actually 2 locations here I couldn't take pictures of because the tree growth was so heavy, you couldn't see nothing. But I mean, I've been doing it for about 30 years, and over on Jefferson Street, yeah, they got a problem there. I mean, I've seen it over there myself, packed up, trucks coming, trying to back in and what have you. But if you look, all these locations, I put the circular driveway in, an entrance and an exit, and we're pretty diligent on moving these guys through fairly quick. It ain't like I stand around chit-chatting with them, and in this particular lot, it's, they're actually going to be able to come in and be too wide, if that's the instance. If everybody pulls into that load dock area, you're going to have, just say you had 3. From what I can see, you could have at least 3 not even out onto the road, and then you could have 3 more beside them as well. So, and I hope that never even happens, because like I said, I try to roll them in and roll them out really fast, because, the location in Brunswick is on the Bath Road there, and that's got a lot of traffic between there and Cook's Corner, and we never have no issues there. I've never really had any issues at any of my locations, as far as that. I was going to try to get something from maybe the police department in each location to say that I'd never had an issue, but it was kind of, I didn't really realize until yesterday that it was an issue, other than talking with the DOT guy, for what I could understand. It was very difficult understanding what he was saying, a lot of it. He talked really fast, and it was kind of hard to understand what he was saying. But I personally, I give you my personal guarantee that would not happen on my watch. And I fully intend to run this shop myself for a good long time to make sure everything's running the way it should be. So, I mean, you could put conditions on it, I guess. If you see it, you can pull my license. I mean, that's as confident, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to happen. And I can also tell my harvesters as well that, if you happen to come up there and you can't get in the yard, to, take a ride around the block, so to speak, or pull into Irvin and get your gas and what have you, because they all go over there prior to the tide, from what I can see. And they got to see this, fairly good spot over there. It wouldn't be very long for them to have to wait. But I don't think, most harvesters are pretty common sense that you can't stop traffic on Route 1,
I'm sorry, Johnny, did you start to say something, or someone else at the table?
I was just wondering, can all of these clammers, do you sequence them, or could like 5 come at once? Or do you have any plan, like maybe instead of having them all bunch up, what if 5 or 6 of these people wanted to come at the same time? Do you have any sequencing plan for them so that doesn't happen? Or can they just come catch as catch can?
Well, they pretty much come at will, and they don't all come in at one time. You get your guys that come in at low water, You know, they only dig a half a tide. The older guys, they come in earlier, you know, and then you get another run, you know, where you get 3 or 4 come in, you know, a couple hours after, and then you know, the big hard heavy hitters don't come in till 3.5, 4 hours after low. So it's not like they all come at one time. That's pretty rare. You know, my Machias location, I don't know if you can see that, the 13 Court Street. I'm literally beside the town office.
I can pull up that one if people would prefer just seeing it, this example that Walter's talking about. I can pull it up very quickly.
Yeah, it's actually 6 Court Street. You know, that's the smallest location we have there. And I mean, that's a pretty busy location as well.
I assume everyone can see that, right?
Yes, I see it well. But the court, you know, you can see the town office is literally right beside me, right to the right on this picture. And then I got Ham and Lumber directly behind me, and their traffic flows out through. And we've had no issues here at all. This is 1A here, Court Street. There's a lot of traffic here, and we don't have, you know, any issues down there. But like I said, we're really pretty diligent about getting them in and getting them out fast.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
At the risk of getting a little bit too granular on this, how many guys, for the sake of argument, how many guys would be coming through in a day, in a tide, whatever? And how much time you think per guy does it take to get them in and out?
I figure you're gonna have probably this location here. I expect it's gonna, you know, obviously Abden and April are gonna get half the guys over there. It ain't like I'm gonna get every digger in town to come over to me. And I'd say probably 7 to 10 guys a day, you know, coming in, and they're there for, you know, approximately 10 minutes. So it ain't like a, you know, I got a big stream of guys gonna flow through there. In Machias, that's our smallest location. And we literally see 30 guys a tide there. I mean, because the production is just so high. And I mean, we bought over 130 bushel up there today. And that all happens in a pretty fast pace, you might say.
I guess I'm a little surprised at the head count you expect, Walter, because man, at the number of commercial licenses the town sells every year, I think's
Yeah, it's a
substantial.
lot. Yeah, you sell over 100 down there, I do believe, but
Yep.
you know, I ain't gonna get them all. You got well, was it one of the Delanos there, the older fellow, I can't think of his first name, buy in, and you got Abden and April buy in. You know, I'm buying in Cushion as well, which some guys, you know, sell over there. They're pretty routine over there. So, I mean, I don't see more than, you know, in a good big tide day, you might see 10, 12.
All right. I'm going to go to Max for a minute. Max, in your discussions with the 3 chiefs, Lash, Smeltzer, and Booker, did they have any recommendations on, they were clear on their concerns, but did they have any specific recommendations on how their concerns could be addressed?
Jim, actually, just before I answer that, do you mind if I ask a point of clarification to Scott?
Sure.
Scott, you said it takes 10 minutes. Is that 10 minutes for each person or 10 minutes total for this 7 to 10 crowd?
Oh, that's per person. And when I say 7 to 10, I'm talking about 7 to 10 trucks. You might have a couple of guys per truck. Most guys partner up. So I'm really referring to, you know, trucks coming through, you know, and it could get, you know, you might get as high as 15, but I don't think you'd see much more than that.
What was I going to say? So Jim, to your question, the three chiefs making a recommendation. They pretty much, I mean, I quickly asked Derek Booker before tonight's meeting if he wanted to sit in, and he said no, unless the planning board wants a time for the chiefs to actually come in later to talk about this, or even ask via email or cell phone. You know, we just wanted to let everyone know of our concerns. I think when I did quickly ask Derek about it, I guess it was just, is there a written plan or something that I think is what they're kind of looking for, like something in writing that just says, this is how we're going to make sure this isn't going to overflow. I think Johnny was actually addressing that a bit earlier anyways, that if a huge crowd comes in at one moment,
Right.
how is that going to be addressed pretty much? So that was pretty much, I think that was pretty much what all three chiefs said through this letter.
So Walter, other than you're going out and actually policing it, which means you'd be trying to do two things at once. You're trying to get, so let's set this scenario. You've got a parking lot full of vehicles with or without trailers on them, and it's starting to back up on the Route 1. You're trying to process them as quickly as you can, but you got to go out and play traffic cop. How is that really going to work?
Well, I hope to have a pretty regular crew, that's going to be selling to me. And, I see these guys on a daily basis, and obviously, I want to make it quite clear to them that if you can't get in, you just keep rolling. They can go up to the next light and go back down around the horn, the block, so to speak, there, and buy themselves some time, in that respect. And I don't, like I said, that's a big parking lot. I don't believe you'd ever see that. I give you my personal guarantee that wasn't going to happen. I don't think it will, just from past experience.
Max, is it possible for us to require signage right there along with the Moody's shellfish sign? No queuing on Route 1, no blocking traffic on Route 1, something to that effect to make it clear that if you can't get into the lot, you keep on rolling?
It's
Yeah.
very distracting. There was already so many signs along that stretch of Route 1. I think that's going to add to the clutter. I don't know if anyone's going to really notice something like that.
Left to ask Dunkin' Donuts to do the same thing.
When they come in for an expansion, we can get them there, but unfortunately, they decided to do that before the ordinance was a thing. Jim, to answer your question, yes, that can be a condition, since one of the review criteria is for safe and adequate vehicle and pedestrian access and circulation. And I did check with MMA about this type of thing, and they said as long as the condition ties to the use of the lot, then it is acceptable.
I think we should keep that as if it turns out to be a problem, we can do that. But to suggest it at the beginning when we've had pretty 30 years of history here, that this is not, it's very unlikely this be an issue. Why add more clutter to our Route 1? I mean, we can always request signs later if it turns out there's a problem.
So I have a alternate suggestion. Let's put the sign on the refrigeration unit on the unloading dock, loading dock, where they're going to pull up. It'll just be a visual reminder. It's not on the road, but it's there as a clear instruction to everybody pulling in that if they can't get into the lot, they've got to circle around. They can't queue up on Route 1. That way we're not cluttering, but it is there. We've done something to make sure, other than Walter's personal guarantee, which I take in the spirit in which it's given. At least there's something else that we've done to ensure that the traffic backup doesn't happen.
I think that's a great idea, personally.
Jim, just for a point of clarification, for the sign that you're saying should go on that storage, are you talking about the one saying if it's fogged up moving along, or are you saying the Moody sign, original Moody Seafood sign?
No, the what to do if the traffic queues up.
Yeah, if I put it on,
Moody's Seafood goes out in the road where it's already been approved, but then the instruction sign for people coming in, you know, if the parking lot is full, keep on moving, don't back up onto Route 1. They'll see that as they're offloading every time they come in. And that should be enough of a reminder, along with Walter telling them what they should be doing.
yeah, I agree. I think that would be great because I kind of do have, you know, I put up like a bulletin board, you know, on the face of that cooler where the loading dock is, where it's right in their face, you know, and I could have a nice little sign made up, you know, just reminding everybody that, you know, that's not going to work at all. And I think it would be a good reminder, like you know, and like I said, I don't think, you know, most harvesters, if they see they can't pull in, they're gonna roll by. I just can't see somebody blocking Route 1. That's like taking your life in your own hands there.
Yeah, that is probably the busiest traffic area in town. So, and
Yeah.
along with all of the public safety equipment next door.
Yeah, and you got the urban traffic, and I see them concrete trucks, they're rolling through there, you know, them big trucks. So I definitely, you know, see your concerns, but I'll do everything I possibly can to make that work. You know, like you say, I think that's a great idea. And like I said, I think, you know, the guys will follow the rules, you know. Like I said, we can get them in and out. And I was almost thinking, maybe I should stripe the parking lot, you know, with some arrows in and out, put an entrance and an exit sign on both ends. And I could actually make that like 2 lanes coming in and out so that the guys can kind of know, you know, that you'd start doubling up when things are looking like it's getting backed up, you know, because you could have them too wide in there. There's all kinds of room for that.
I think, yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. That's showing folks where they should drive, how they should park would certainly help.
Yeah.
Any exit and entrance, because I can see that's not really the natural traffic flow. Folks coming up off the boat ramps be coming that way. For those that use a skiff.
Right.
All right. So I have a handful of items that we would probably want to attach to any approval. Let me just run through them to see if anybody has anything more in addition. I believe we should show request on the plan that the dedicated parking is shown for the apartment tenants. That would go hand in hand with the striping and the exit and entrance signs to show that the traffic flow in and out and in the lot for the clammers as they're dropping off their product. Showing
Yeah,
barriers, Walter?
I've found in the Brunswick location, that's actually a fish market and a takeout, and we buy clams there. So, you know, and it has a drive-through. So, you know, if there was ever going to be a problem, it would be at that location. But I did find that if you do not lay it out in solid black and white, the parking and the flow, you're going to have problems. I mean, I've had people pull right up at the takeout window and jump out to go in and eat food, you know what I mean? Until I actually put arrows down and stripes and what have you.
Okay. So I think doing that also addresses the chief's concern, because you're going to have a more controlled traffic flow and probably be able to handle more traffic if you do that.
Yeah.
The signage on the cooler, reminding all of your suppliers of to stay off Route 1, to pull completely into the parking lot, not to do anything to block Route 1 at all. And then, Max, we need to get clarification on whether or not tractor trailers and boat trailers are one and the same. And I don't think it makes a difference to the planning board which it is, but we need to know so that Walter's doing the right thing. If the MDOT really meant boat trailers as well as tractor trailers, then that's going to impact the signage he's got to put up and what he tells his suppliers, his claimers. Anyone have anything else in terms of conditions?
I think with the bundles, I don't know if with the package bundles that went out, but there was the separate letter from the fire chief that went over section 712, I believe. The emergency access and the sufficient water. I think that was in that. If not, then maybe that document was just not put there. And I think I talked to Scott about this already, but essentially the fire chief is recommending that a lockbox be on the site just for emergency access.
Which I've agreed to as well. That's not a problem.
Okay.
That would just be a condition.
So subject to these conditions, will I have a motion?
Well, so just to be, you go through those conditions again, Jim?
That the site plan be updated to show the dedicated parking for the tenants and the traffic flow, entrance, exit, striping to show the traffic flow for the suppliers. The signage on the cooler, reminding everyone of no queuing up on Route 1 to keep Route 1 clear. I'll leave the wording of that to Walter.
Okay.
Showing I don't think I got to this one, the 8-foot offset and the barriers by subway, just to show the requirement for the barriers and exactly how that would work with the striping for the parking lot and the parking spaces and everything else, just to have a comprehensive plan of what's going to happen in that parking lot.
Was that required, that the barriers? I mean, it's a good thing to do, but that's not a plan ordinance requirement, is it? I mean, it's a good thing for him to manage the lot that way, but I don't think that's part of our ordinance requirements to have a physical barrier. Right?
Max?
Not a required standard, but it goes back to what that review criteria item I said later, where the proposal will provide for safe and adequate vehicle and pedestrian access and circulation and development. So those are the types of conditions that can be made at this time that should address that concern.
Without that, I could see if the parking lot got full, people pulling into the subway parking lot, it's sort of used as a common parking lot. I think it behooves us to separate the two as Walter already plans, but to formalize the plans to do that.
I guess my point is that if this business changes down the line, does this leave the next owner of the properties some leeway to do something different on that border? I mean, who knows what, and if this is a permanent requirement, it definitely makes sense for this project to have something there and to have the 8-foot setback anyway for the parking, for the apartment units, but not every business along Route 1 has got a physical barrier between one office and the next. The realty office and a lot of them don't have a physical barrier. And I'm just wondering why I think you should put it on the site plan, but why do we have to require it of him? He's going to do it, but why do we have to require it?
Well, my position on that, Barbara, is if it's planned to be done, it should be on the site plan. The site plan should be all inclusive. We've said it's going to be done, or Walter has said it's going to be done. In that case, put it on the site plan.
I agree.
Okay. I'm just saying, some people couldn't go ahead and do all this at once in the starting of the business. This guy's been in business for a while, but for if it's another business just starting out, it might be, asking a big expense to start your business. So that's why I bring it up.
Walter, do you have any issues with us having this requirement on anything that might be approved?
No, I think everything's, going in the right direction. And, I think for this particular project, I think that parking lot should be closed off just to mitigate any traffic jams that we might see. Just what time I've been down there working on the interior, I had my pickup truck backed up to the double doors there, and then the signpost is like 5 feet off the nose of your truck. And traffic was coming through and literally going on the outside of the signpost on the grass to go around through the parking lot. It's like, whoa, that ain't gonna work at all. So I think for this particular project, everything, the lockbox, I think the signage on the cooler is a great idea. I think striping it, the entrances and exits, I think you got to lay it right out pretty solid, but I say, on a case by case basis, I'd say this is the best case for this particular project.
Okay.
Okay, good. Next, I think the other one we had was the lockbox on site as required by Chief Smeltzer. And then there's a point of clarification, and that has to do with the tractor trailers and boat trailers.
Yep, no problem.
And for, oh, go ahead. Was someone about to speak?
I was just going to ask, is it typical for the fire station to have a lockbox to apartments? What is the lockbox to?
The lockbox is to the buying station, well, to the building itself, actually, the first floor. Because Walter, if I understood the layout correctly from the application, it's going to be the far right, and then the top part of the building are going to be apartments, right? There's going to be that whole left section that's going to be
Correct.
for the business, correct?
Yeah, basically I'm going to use there's a garage door there, that bay. I'll use that to store, any clam baskets and pallets that I might have to use, as the clams are coming in. I'll use that I'll put a desk in that area. So that'll be where I'll actually write their invoices and, get them a check. But yes, the apartments will be separate from that particular piece per se.
Okay.
And I intend to have the bottom apartment is actually going to be for one of my employees to stay there on site and to kind of keep an eye on things for me.
So subject to these conditions, do I have a motion?
Oh, I meant to actually talk about this at the June meeting, but we haven't had a quorum since. So when it comes to site map revisions, we do need to have the site map actually revised and complete, and then you can vote on the whole measure. But we can certainly still do a motion to be fine with everything now, and then by the next meeting, we can have the document that's ready for the quote unquote final approval and then signatures. So if you're saying the site plan needs to be amended, then is that what I'm getting from all this, Jim?
That's what you're getting from me. Yeah, I'd like to see the site plan amended to show everything we've just discussed. So there's no question about what it is we're agreeing to and that needs to happen. And so long as that's done, then it would be approved. But I understand what you're saying. We don't have anything in front of us that we can formally sign off on and approve until that's actually been done.
Right. And this is because of a case that has happened somewhat recently, where it was presented on the site plan, but then there was some confusion about what wasn't on there. And then when I talked with the attorneys about it, it was something that shouldn't have been approved, but it's already a moot point because of what's happened in June. But that was something that they just gave a little warning about going forward of if you're amending the site plan, something like the barrels, that's something where like just need to say amend this and then we can do the final sign off next meeting, which is 2 weeks from now. So that should be a quick 10-minute thing if the site plan's amended.
Okay. So there's not a motion per se, Max, or how do we proceed?
It would just be the board, I guess, recognizing those conditions and site plan changes, and then that'll be on the final plan, and then that will be approved next meeting.
So it's the board taking a consensus of the board. We all agree that these this is what we'd like to see on the revised submittal of the site plan next meeting.
Correct. So it's just for, if I'm getting this correct, lockbox will be on the site. That's going to be a condition. The site plan will be updated to address the tenants and when they're going to be parking. I guess it's already on there, but I guess make it more clear that there's going to be a barrier that will divide the subway lot and the project lot. And then a condition is just going to be the sign on the cooler regarding the congestion.
Question, Max?
Yep.
When you say barrier, that's open to a little bit of interpretation. In the MAA, one of their conditions of approval is you should state conditions clearly in the decision and clearly note conditions of any approval plan. So do you think the language is focused enough to, you could put a barrier of junk cars or whatever. So,
That's more on the board's call on how specific you want to be.
yeah, well, I'm just, this is from the
I
MMA.
know,
This
I
is
know.
from lawyers. So I just
know.
don't want to get into dangerous ground where things can be misconstrued.
I mean, funny enough, there is going to be an application later tonight about trees versus fences. So you could certainly, I mean, barrels seems to be the idea for what's going to.
Right, no,
So you can say barrels if you want. I leave it to how specific the board wants the condition to be.
I mean, I'm not trying to be nitpicky. I'm just saying this is what lawyers from the MMA.
No,
say.
I know what you're saying, but I'm saying I don't actually have that authority to say what's in it. That's going to be the planning board's decision.
Okay, so,
That's all I'm trying to get across.
okay, I just trying to figure out what.
So however.
So
the language-
Walter, we'll leave it to you on the revised site plan to show us barriers that you think will meet with our approval.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. And it's, of course, it is a vehicular barrier we're talking about because we're trying to stop traffic flow.
Correct.
So I'll approve it based on what we just talked about in.
Except Max, excuse me, Barbara, Max missed one significant item, and that's all of the exit and entrance asphalt painting and the showing that the lanes for the traffic flow in the parking lot. That's also a significant item we need on the revised site plan. And now I'll take your agreement, Barbara.
Well, I guess we don't have to vote today, but it sounds like, I mean, is anybody anybody have any not going to approve this project in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Or any remaining questions?
John, Sarah, Jeff, we good with all this?
Yes, I would.
Good. Walter, you've got some work to do to get that back in front of us within the next couple of weeks, and I'll let you coordinate that with Max.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll get that right over to him as soon as possible so you can all look it over, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Marshall, I think you're up next. Here for the 2818 Atlantic Highway.
Yes.
This is the final version of what we looked at on a preliminary basis a couple of months ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
So want to give us a, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. Max, should we be doing anything with the planning board with your findings of fact or other documents before we go into a presentation of the application by the applicant?
So that's something we can actually talk about later if there's some time. That's a document that we really should have rather than just planner summary. There should be a more official document beyond that summary and the minutes. So that's, I think we talked about this back in April, but that's just something we need to sort of iron out a bit more. But we can talk about that later.
Because I do like the documents that you put together. It's just now figuring out how we work them into our way of working.
So typically for the findings of facts and conclusion of law, that's when you do want to actually approve the application and you're just running through everything and making sure you actually have the facts of the application down so that if someone was to look at it, they can actually see it right there as opposed to scattered in the minutes.
Okay. Makes complete sense. Marshall?
All right. Yeah. So Matt Moody is proposing to construct another 60-foot by 120-foot storage facility at this location. Be very similar to the existing storage building, and it'll be for RVs and boats to be stored there. And then there'll be 10 self-storage units as well.
Has anything significant changed from the previous preliminary plan?
Not anything too significant, more just refining our design to make sure it was properly graded and drainage, it would drain well and everything like that.
Yeah, those were the principal changes that there were updates, I think, that I saw.
We shifted the proposed location a bit to the, would it be the west, to the left? Yeah, to the west, to decrease the amount of impervious area that would be created by the gravel that's proposed.
Yeah. So the area between the self-storage pods and the new building is not impervious, is that correct?
It'll just remain grass.
Any other board members have any questions on this? We went over it pretty completely last time.
Just Jim, if I can jump in.
Yeah, Max.
I did get the fire chief to check it out because that was something I said I was going to do during the preliminary. And he said he's able to get his truck through and around the property without any issues.
Good. I think Johnny had brought that up as a good point.
How it's proposed. And he gave me a letter giving his recommendations. Nothing's needed on the water supply, but does recommend a lockbox for the site. Just a reminder, that's just a recommendation. The board can accept that recommendation and have a lockbox as a condition, or you can choose not to. It's up to the board.
I'm sorry, Max, I didn't catch all that. Say that again.
So fire chief gave me a letter about his recommendation for section 7.12.
Yeah.
The water supply on the site's fine for this proposal, and he is recommending a lockbox for the site.
Yeah.
And I didn't say this in the last one, but just to clarify with the planning board, it is a recommendation from the fire chief. So the board can choose to accept that recommendation and have the lockbox as a condition, or you can choose to waive the request or recommendation.
Oh.
It's a board decision.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Marshall, do you think Mr. Moody would have any objections to having a lockbox on the property?
Matt's
I
actually
had,
in the audience tonight too.
sorry. what
I'm
was
sorry, Marshall?
I hadn't had any discussions about having a lockbox or not with him. So I'm not sure on that one.
Sorry for cutting you off there. Matt's actually in the audience tonight.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Matt, do you have?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'll add that to the front of the office building there.
Yeah, I think that's actually where the chief was suggesting, since that's a more central spot.
Right.
Yeah, so
Sounds good.
Matt's giving the thumbs up.
Good deal. Thank you. Johnny, did you start to ask something before or?
I'm just curious. So you're gonna store RVs, boats, and you're gonna have bins? Is that I'm just a little confused. Is that the gist of what you want to do, expand and?
Yeah, just same as I'm doing currently. It's just an open building, open floor plan.
Right.
And I have 6 lane lines painted in there.
Right.
And boats, cars, and RVs.
And I always ask this question, can those vehicles, do they drip anything, oils, anything like that, that can somehow get into, or if you wash them or rinse them off, is there any concern?
There's
for
no
that?
water on the property.
There's nothing,
And
okay.
and they can't do anything. And we do put oil absorbent pads.
Underneath, yeah, okay,
under
good
cars
idea,
or-
excellent,
Or
okay,
anything that's got a motor.
Yep.
Per se, like an outboard or.
Yep.
An outboard motor.
excellent.
Um,
That was my only question.
Right.
Thank you.
oil absorbent pads, so.
I
I
think
have a question.
Barbara? Yeah.
I apologize. I meant to look this up today and I didn't have time, but maybe Max can address this. But the lighting that's proposed, it doesn't look like it's they're dark sky fixtures. They seem to go, the lighting goes out as well as down. Is there any problem with switching them to changing the light fixtures so that they are primarily facing down?
I believe the lighting, what we're suggesting is on the back of the office building, facing to the north to light up the access to the storage pods. So it wouldn't be facing the Route 1 corridor. All the lighting will be going to the north.
Barbara,
They
did you hear that?
actually, the elevations don't show the, so on the big buildings, there's no lighting at all? So these light fixtures are just to go on the small existing building, so they're lower to the ground.
Right after that, right on the back of that one, facing to the north, because those storage pods are gonna be lined up. Basically from the back of that small office building to the north.
And everyone on Zoom could hear Matt, correct?
Yes.
I just didn't know. Sometimes people can hear, sometimes people can't.
Here we go.
Barbara, does that answer your question or?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, the point of that type of light fixture is to reduce light pollution generally. I mean, it's still, is functional for what's happening on the ground, but with only 2 bulbs, 2 light fixtures on that entire property, that's, if you were to add more, you're likely to go get the same type of fixture and put them around different places. And that's my only critique about that type of light fixture is that it's going out as well as is down, the way it's designed. Yeah, I mean, there's specifically commercial light fixtures that are for dark sky compliance, which I thought we had in our ordinance, Max. Is that the case or?
Our lighting standards, light level at lot lines shall not exceed 0.5 foot candles measured at ground level. Maximum height of freestanding light shall be the same as principal buildings. All lights shall have shielding to provide a beam cutoff at no more than 75 degrees above nadar.
Yeah, that's
That's
what
one.
does it. Okay.
It's
So you
tough. I'm
just-
looking at the cut sheet for the lighting fixture and it's tough to figure out exactly how far up that light will go, but
So, Barbara, just to be clear, you just want to make sure that the lights comply with section 7.1.3. All lights shall have shielding to provide a beam cutoff at no more than 75 degrees. That's what you want to be sure about?
Yes.
I'm getting the thumbs up here.
Yeah.
so we have two conditions as I understand it. One is the addition of a lockbox at the agreed location and that the lighting on the existing building that to be added to the existing building comply with the town standards. Anything else, anyone?
Can I just ask a question, just for clarification? We didn't need a stormwater management. I know there's a proportion or percentage of the developable lot. Can you just tell me what that ended up being? And why we don't need a storm management plan?
Marshall?
I don't. Do you
So,
remember where it is in your?
If you have over an acre of impervious area, you need a stormwater permit from the DEP. But a portion of the impervious area for this lot was in existence, but prior to 2005, when stormwater management law was put into place. So if you subtract that out of our total impervious area, we're actually below an acre of impervious area that's going to have been put into place after 2005, if that makes sense.
And what year was that change happened? You said-
Stormwater law came into effect in 2005.
So this building was partially developed, I mean, the property was partially developed before 2005, so it's not taken
Yes.
into consideration for water
Correct.
management.
Well, just the part that was previously developed is not considered. It's only new developments over an acre that have to have a stormwater management plan. Marshall, was that correct?
Yeah, if you develop over an acre after 2005, then you need a stormwater. So we're very close to that, but we did not exceed it.
It
I think
does,
that was
15,000.
something we took you to task for a little bit in the previous meeting. You were right on the edge. And I think that might be one reason why you move things a little bit to the west or north.
Exactly. Yeah.
Area, yeah.
I think before it was slightly over, so that's why we adjusted it to make sure we were under that acre threshold.
and I'm sorry if I'm jumping in, just for clarity, are you saying just a stormwater permit or a stormwater permit by rule?
Stormwater permit by rule.
Okay. Just wanted that clarity.
What does that mean, Max? What you just said?
I believe that, I mean, maybe I got it wrong, but because there was this whole discussion when we had CCOT trucking back in March about 1 acre requiring a permit by rule, whereas a different acre would be a more thorough stormwater plan. Yeah, and I'm okay, so I'm not crazy. I'm seeing some head nods there.
Yeah, they just have a longer review period for a full stormwater permit than they do the permit by rule. It's basically more requirements, more thorough review. It's like it's a different team within their department.
So that's why I was just asking for that clarity.
What was the purpose of including the soil survey data in the application? I may have missed that, but just like that the ground that is there is not already very permeable to water. Is there a reason behind including that information, or is that required?
I believe that might be a requirement of the ordinance, if I remember correctly, to include that data.
Yeah, I'll pull that up.
I don't remember the specific section, but
Section 8.6 is about soils. It just wanted to be sure that it was soil that was suitable for this type of development. I assume that's what you're talking about.
On anything else?
I just have one thought just came to me. You said there's no water there's no water at all on that site?
That was so well.
There's no well or nothing? And again, my mind kind of does funny things, but let's just say at 1 AM, a vehicle catches fire. So a fire truck would have to go through that lane and put it out? I mean, is there fire alarms or anything like that for safety reasons that would alert the town?
No. I mean, it's one open building,
Right?
so that there's with multiple doors, accessible vents to get into the, whatever's stored in there.
So that there'd be reasonable access
Oh, yes.
for an emergency
Oh, yeah.
vehicle. Okay, all right. I just-
It's 220-foot.
Okay.
On each end, so 12 plus entrance doors.
So with that, can I hear a motion to approve, subject to the two conditions we've stated, one being the additional lockbox in the agreed location, and the second one being that the new lighting fixtures comply with the town requirements?
So moved.
Thank you, Barbara. Second?
I'll second it,
Johnny seconding.
seconding it.
All in favor, one by one. Johnny?
Yay.
Yay. Sarah?
Aye or yay?
Aye.
Jeff? Good.
I,
Barbara?
I,
Yeah.
I also vote in favor, so it's unanimous.
thank you.
Go by the old English standard. Yeah.
I'll work with Matt and Dorothy and Dorsky, get the conditions on the plan, and then get the planning board
I prefer
signatures.
the British parliamentary system.
Good. Okay. Matt, good luck. I'm glad your business is working out for you.
Thank you.
Good work.
All right, Max, where do we go next?
Now, it is an amendment for the site plan that was approved last year at 30 Manktown Road. And
I think we have time. Let's, and I believe that the folks are there in the audience, so let's, is
yeah,
that correct?
in the audience, if you can come up to the podium, then I can, yeah. Yeah, just explain the application.
Okay, well, what I'd like to know, it was, my plan was approved.
I'm sorry, hold on, excuse me. Max, we need to do something with the mic. It's that she's not coming through.
I'm just gonna keep it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is that good? Can you hear me now?
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. All right. I submitted my plan a couple years ago for an addition to my gymnastic facility. And at the time, we had a bit of a problem at the border of our property, my property and my neighbor's property. And we asked for an abatement, which the Vannas agreed to at the time, because my, the setback was off. I don't know exactly how much, but it was agreed to, and we thought we were done at that point. But then the town told me that I had to have an actual land exchange. And so I had Dusty Star put up a plan and offered the Vannas a land exchange of a little bit more acreage than what I would be getting. And at that point, the Vannas were not in agreement of that. So that's where we're at with the property line. So at that point, part of the agreement of the abatement was to put up a 6-foot stockade fence. And at that point, since things were going forward at that time, it wasn't quite a problem. But I find at this time, since the project has been delayed, it's costing more money to put the building up, and the budget is a little tight. And so what I wanted to know is, instead of putting up the fence, could I put up trees? And so that was my question.
So Max, thank you for that explanation. Max, if the land exchange didn't happen, how did the building construction go forward?
So that's the other, the addition hasn't been completed yet. right?
No, it hasn't been completed. And the building, I had to move over, instead of a straight build onto my building, I had to move the building over 8 feet and 2 inches to make the setback requirements.
So it is 30 feet off the line.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. So we made the adjustments, so we're making the setback. And so what I wanted to know is, can I plant trees? Because I think the trees are going to be a little bit more within budget than putting up the stockade fence.
So just as a clarification, this isn't about whether or not the last application last year is acceptable. This is more about amending that one condition to go from fence to a tree buffer instead. That's really what the point of the application is.
Okay.
What was the reasoning or context behind requiring the fence buffer?
I believe it was something requested by the neighbors who are actually in the audience tonight. And I don't know when you want to get to the citizens or butters comments. Jim, Sarah.
Let's first see if there are any other questions for is it Janice? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. For Janice, from any of the board members before we go to the banners.
Max, were we sent any kind of site plan or anything? I don't remember. I don't see anything.
I know I sent an email. I thought I
There's a
did.
finding of facts.
Yeah, I
there.
printed it out. It was while you were feeling well, Barbara. It was about 10
Maybe
days
2 or
ago.
3 pages.
Does it show how long or how many trees or what length fence we're replacing with what trees and that kind of thing?
It's a very thin line on that site plan, but essentially it would be going all along the property line from just that right corner with the Vannas. Like, it would be a tree buffer from that corner all the way down to where the tree line currently is. Yep, Jim's got it right there. Again, it's a very thin line that's on there, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that was all out of proportion, those lines that were there. So, but it runs the whole length of that lot line. Is that correct, Max?
Oh, the question for James.
Yes.
It looked from where you held up, Jim, that the trees would be right up against the corner of the building.
No, and that's what's out of proportion, because the building is 30 feet. So I believe the trees are 30 feet off that. It's that this particular plan doesn't show it very well. is my understanding.
Do you know how long the run of trees would be or the run of fence would be? Do you know how many feet you're trying to cover?
Janice?
I'd have to measure that, but a guesstimate would be probably, I would say about 100 feet.
Yeah, if the building size is anything to scale, it looks like it's more 150 to 175 feet, but
Excuse me?
it's just tough to tell because there's
Okay,
a little scale on this. So Barbara, take it as 100 to 150, somewhere in that range.
right. So,
Well,
what
it's
I would
not
like-
really, if the point of the buffer, the barrier was visual privacy, the trees, usually that means shrubs or evergreens, so you have stuff lower down. That's, so, trees is, when they say trees as a buffer, it's usually kind of like a foresty kind of strip, not a line of trees. Because they're going to be low and bushy while they're young, but they're going to get tall and leggy. So, it kind of depends on what we're trying to do here.
And as I understand it, the current plan too is, I guess on the Vanna side of the property would be the trees, and that would be in the 8-foot setback. And then there's going to be a drive on
yes,
that side to give access to the parking lot in the back. So there is only that narrow 8 feet available for planting. And I tend to agree with Barbara that that's not going to provide much buffer.
I'm sorry if I'm joining in and this is now off topic. I did a quick rough estimate in the back for the measurements for how long this tree line might be. I think it might be 225. I don't know if that.
The back line's 225.
205 feet is what the banners are saying in the audience.
Okay.
Going to the woods, so you're going 175.
So 175
For the fence.
is the estimate.
It
That's
costs more for trees, I think, for the fence.
well,
So-
and that's kind of what I wanted to determine. I wanted to do the research with trees, and I want to do the research with the fence and to see which one was more feasible. And I'd like to go with the more economical.
so I'm sorry that I jumped in with that. I don't know if I cut off a good point.
No, that's fine, Max. Does anyone, before we go to the Vannas, do any of the other board members have questions for Janice?
I don't know that it's a question for Janice, but just a comment that it's not having been here for the initial approval, it's hard to understand, without knowing what the intention was behind the barrier to make at this point, to make a determination about whether trees are sufficient. So I think that's the part that's missing, but hopefully we'll get to that.
Yeah, I think the banners will
Okay.
probably explain
All
that. but-
Let's then go to the Vannas and hear what their thoughts are on the situation.
All right, when she originally built the first part of the building, we didn't have any problem with anything. We were promised a fence and trees.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, we can't, it's not coming through on the electronics. And for the benefit of Susan, who's taking the notes, could you please tell us who you are?
I'm Richard Banner Jr. I'm the neighbor. I live on 46 Manktown Road, and my wife is Linda Vanna.
Thank you. Go ahead.
We good? You all set?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
I just want to make sure you can hear me. So when the original project was first built, we were promised a fence, trees, either or, and that was in 2017, and we got neither. So when the second one, we were approached by her for an addition to the original building. We signed the abatement so that she could build the original building the way she wanted to build it. And then she wanted some property, which I wasn't willing to give. wanted to keep my back line as straight as possible, and I'd been there for 30+ years and, just wanted to keep my back line. And then she told me she'd do the fence, and we made sure this time that the fence is in the plan, because last time it was just in the minutes. This time it's in the plan. So there's going to be a parking lot beyond the new building, which we didn't know about, but that's fine. She's just extending her parking lot. And she's going to have cars turning around and coming up through at the back of our line, coming out the one way and going in the other. Doesn't matter which way they go. There's still cars and there's still dust. And there's still lights. And the original, she has a lot of little children down there, which is fine. Run your business the way you want to, but I also have a bedroom sliding window in the back. When I come out of the bathroom and into my bedroom, I'm looking right directly at the building full of children. Obviously, I have to keep my shade shut all the time. So we wanted privacy. We wanted some privacy from a business in our backyard. And trees aren't going to cut it, because we know we won't get what we want for trees. We want a 6-foot stockade fence like we were promised. That's all I have to say. Do you have any questions for me?
Sarah, are you, because you were asking about the context earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's helpful. Yeah, that's helpful context. I think, it's not like, I haven't seen, it would probably be most ideal to go back and look at what the actual agreement was, right? So maybe that makes sense to do. And then I have like a broader process question about what types of conditions the planning board can put into agreements, and what is our role from the perspective of enforcement, right? So it's the fact that the fence is not there and was in the agreement doesn't necessarily seem like so. I'm
It was
confused
only
about
in the
our,
minutes.
right. No, that makes
They
that
didn't put it in
part
the
makes
plan.
sense.
So it was discussed, but not made because we didn't say anything the first time she built the building. We were fine.
We said
It's-
it
It was a verbal
Right.
thing that she put a fence up and put a row of trees with it, honestly.
when
Both.
she came and asked for the second property, the second building put on. I specifically asked her, I said, well, where is my fence from the first time or my trees? She said, I ran out of money. I said, then how are you to tell us that you're not gonna run out of money the second time? I need this put in the plan so that I get my fence, because that's what we were promised the first time, to get some sort of buffer, didn't get it. So we're gonna make sure that it comes this time because it's not fair to us.
No, that makes sense.
And to answer your procedural question
Yeah.
on the conditions, so the very first one that was done in 2017, as it was just noted, it was only in the minutes.
Right.
So because it wasn't in the written agreement for the actual site plan, which is why I was talking about that earlier with Moody Seafood, that was something that just had to be amended because we need to make sure it's all actually written on the site plan. And so in the most recent one that happened last year, when the buffer came up and the screening came up, the buffer and screening are requirements on the planning board standards. It's like the first one actually.
Okay.
Usually people ask that to be waived whenever there is no vegetation that's already there.
Okay.
But in this case, the fence can always be an alternative to trees,
Okay.
which is why they requested a fence specifically.
Thank you.
And that would just be built like after the construction is done.
Quick question for you.
Sure.
So the 6-foot fence is what you want, and that's your bottom line?
Yes.
So there's nothing in the way of trees that it just doesn't do the right thing to what you agree
It's
with?
not gonna work for what we want, the lights and being blocked half of the building and so on and so forth.
And like you said, how do you know what trees you get? I know somebody
Yeah.
said shrubs and smaller things. I mean, the trees will have to grow. I believe it was Barbara.
If you buy a 6-foot arm and plant 175 feet of them or 200 feet of them, it's gonna cost you no fence in it.
Expensive.
And you can see through them
That's what I was-
when you go through. So the lights will run right through
Barbara was about to talk.
them. Go ahead,
I have
Bob.
I have a question on the site plan that I pulled up from your old email. Max, I assume I'm looking at the right one. There's the white building, there's a 30-foot red square and 2,663 square foot. I think that means the parking lot behind. Is that the site plan we're looking at?
Yes.
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 Okay, what's the orange line that goes from the word access all the way to the parking? What does that orange line signify?
Supposed to be the tree buffer or the fence. Within 6.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here.
I see. So this was something that I was told by Stan Waltz, where between the building and this proposed tree buffer, there's actually a little access road that will go to that expanded parking lot.
And we didn't know about that either.
Yeah, I-
Behind the buildings, there's going to be an access road?
So
Behind the building.
between her building and our,
And our property line.
property line, there's gonna be a driveway that goes straight.
Why? Why is that there?
Because that's what she planned.
and that wasn't on the original site plan last year. I want to point that out.
We got told nothing.
We got told nothing about that.
And I learned that the day.
That I came in.
Yeah, pretty much.
'Cause we- I'm not
That-
sure.
That puts both sides of our lot down the driveway, and the other side, both sides are gonna be covered with driveway.
The
Going
park,
to the same place.
the parking lot is actually something that is approved by
Yeah, that's
the
fine.
code enforcement officer.
Yep, and that's,
And so because this was all because the tree buffer was being requested, figured it was best to update the site plan to include the shifted building and now the expanded parking lot. And apparently the access road.
Is that in?
but does she have to have that permission from us for the access road? But she has to
No,
be,
it's on there.
she has to be 8 feet away from our line for the
The,
whole driveway.
that driveway, that access driveway that's on there, it does have to be 8 feet away from the property line. That's in the standards as well.
Because I'm wondering,
If
the
that's-
way it looks, it does not look like it's gonna be 8
So
feet.
if there's 30 feet between the line and the
Right
building,
here is what I'm talking about.
So if I read that there's all sorts of issues with the scale of that drawing, as I've mentioned before. If the new building has been moved so that the nearest corner to your property line is 30 feet away, then in theory, there's 22 feet before you get to your 8 feet buffer for a driveway to exist.
Right. And Stan Waltz will have to go out and measure to make sure that access road that's on the new one that's on there.
Right.
He has to ensure that it is 8 feet from the property line.
Richard, has that line been, excuse me, Barbara, has that line been surveyed? Do you have stakes on that line?
Yes,
Janice had it surveyed.
we had it surveyed early in the beginning, and then she had it redone, and it's even wider than it was.
So it's pretty straightforward to figure out
It's
how
actually
far off it is.
accurate now.
Excuse me, Barbara, go ahead.
My only comment is doing a circular driving thing around buildings filled with little kids so that there's cars 360 degrees just seems like dangerous.
Do you mind?
Oh,
Well, safety is primary. So one of the reasons why I needed to consider this driveway is that the building was moved over, cut into the parking lot more. The way the people come into the parking lot now, in my opinion, has its issues of danger because they're coming right into the entry area and people just zoom in. And I figured by making a one-way circular, it would take care of that problem. We'd have a drop-off area and then they move out of the parking area. They'd either park or they drive away. Usually they drop off kids. Hearing what I've heard tonight, one way to solve this is I can say, I'll go with the fence. I'll build a fence.
Sounds like you need it.
Yeah.
That's visual, it's between a business and a residential area, so. And headlights would be annoying to a home.
Mhm.
So, sounds like you need it.
They're children. So, 8 o'clock is our bedtime. So, but if to solve this problem, it requires putting up a fence, then let's put up a fence.
Maybe more economical.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be cheaper to put up trees.
Okay, well, and that's what I needed to find out. So that's actually good news.
All right.
All right.
And I do see the ban is hand.
so we don't have like that driveway was approved because it's on her property. There's nothing we can do there.
I think I'd have to check with Stan and
Because if safety is an issue, she has a circular driveway at the bottom of her driveway now, right? Put the parking lot on the other side, and you got no problem whatsoever, to drive in, drive out.
But then children would have to cross that area.
So when you doing that?
I'd have a drop-off area right to the entrance.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping in now and cutting people off, and I'm sorry if that's outside my power, but I'd have to check with Stan, and I have to check with probably MMA to see the driveway specifically. The parking lot Stan can do. The driveway itself, I have to see if that's a site plan update or if that's still within Stan's jurisdiction.
The only other question I would have is how much time, once she gets this stone down, are you guys gonna allow her to get that fence? Because I don't believe that she's gonna put the fence up. She said it once before, so I literally don't have a lot of faith. So I need to know from you guys what you're gonna do to make sure this fence goes up this time.
First of all, Jim and Barbara, did you hear that?
Yes, I did. I was going to ask the same question.
Thank you.
So go ahead, Max.
Thank you, Jim.
Max, let me phrase the question a little different way.
Yeah.
There has to be a certificate of occupancy issued for that building when it's completed, correct?
Correct.
And will Stan, when he considers that, consider the entire project before he issues that certificate of occupancy?
I would have to ask Stan that, but the practice is usually 2 months after completing construction, I think is the limit. But again, I'd have to check with Stan on that figure.
You told us
30
30 days.
Stan said 30 days
You said that it was in the written that way.
in the
so-
conditions. Oh,
Yeah.
that was the case, then that's it. 30 days apparently is in the condition, so it's 30 days after the building is complete.
Okay. And if it's not done, what
Then it's
can the town do?
Do I have to go through the whole enforcement process, or we do send notices and letters initially. We have to. We have to send the notice first, but then we start getting into financial fees and penalties, and if we still don't get anything at that point, then it is actually court action.
So there is recourse that the banners can look to for the town to ensure that these conditions are met.
Yes,
Okay.
it's written in the conditions. That's the key item that I wanted to get out there. Because it's in the conditions, that is something the town does have to follow up on. And I
Alright.
believe because it's tied to the condition of the addition can't be used if that condition is not met. So in that 30-day period, it's under the good faith that the fence will be built. But once that 30-day period is over, then we send the letters and say you can't use that addition until the fence is up or until there's an agreed upon timeline.
But I can use my current building.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's hope it never comes to that, but I think everybody's aware now of the potential courses of actions that everybody has to or could take to make sure that all of the agreements are met. All right.
I think it does.
Anyone, anything else on this? So as I understand it, Janice, you're rescinding your application?
I'm rescinding my, my request to change to trees.
Okay. So we have nothing to vote on.
Right.
Pretty much it.
Okay,
Good there?
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa.
Yep. application.
Okay, I'll call the fence guys tomorrow, get them on board. That's all I wanted to know.
All right.
Okay, thank you a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Have Shane here to present a pre-application, if you don't mind a 5 to 10 minute conversation.
Not at all.
Jim, Barbara?
Okay,
5 minutes, 5 minutes.
Put the pressure.
Getting late. I've been sitting in this chair for too long.
I understand. So you guys know my property, I assume. Did you see anything from him or no?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get that out at the time, but this is about 122 Atlantic Highway, where Applecroft is. If people know, you might have to start. from the
Okay.
beginning.
I'll back it up then. I gave him some stuff. We've been going back and forth for a while, trying to figure out how to best attack this. My property is, actually my family's property is just south of Dow Furniture, 122 Atlantic Highway, big old barn up on the hill there. My mother used to have a kitchenware store there. I've been running catering business out of there since 2017. It was formerly Harvest Moon, and then after the pandemic, I changed the name to Applecroft Catering. Familiar with the space. So my intention for the last, since I moved back to Maine, was to try to figure out a way to save that property and get it profitable. My first step was to start the catering company because I'm a chef. And now I'm working on a plan to, for starters, just to hold weddings in tents in the back field. I go all over the state now, doing weddings in tents with porta potties and outdoor kitchens and whatnot. But I'd love to not move all over the place, and I'd love to start work on getting that property into shape to be an event venue, to be something awesome on the side of Route 1 there. And keep that from being, you know, after my stepfather died, every offer I had to sell that property was to subdivide it. And my mother's sort of last wish, she's still alive, but you know, her wish to me was, if you're going to take over this property, please don't let it get subdivided. It's got, you know, a ton of the whole entire west side of Kaler's Pond is on that property, and it's just an awesome piece of property. And it's got a big field that you can't see from the road, which is behind the barn. And so that's what I'm looking to use. So I've got quotes to put up a tent for the entire season from Wallace Events in Rockland, and do porta potties out there, and then just host weddings in that property. So the biggest, you know, for sort of first steps to getting that commercially viable is the parking and entrance. So I submitted to the DOT to move the existing entrance. I think I said 400 feet in that last thing. Anyway, the DOT picked the new spot for it. Based on the sight lines there, picked the best spot. That's it's sort of further down in that hollow there, and you can got great sight lines in both directions. So my thought talking with Max was to gate off and lock the existing driveway, build a new driveway further down the lot, and then take some of that front fields and make a big grass parking lot, and then take the existing driveway and, you know, like I said, gate it and make an emergency entrance only, and then I would have an emergency access road all the way out to that back field that would never have any cars on it. These are not super official looking plans because I did them myself. First draft. Yeah, first draft. I have no money to. This is me drawing lots of pictures, is what I do.
It looks really good.
Hey,
Yeah,
thanks.
looks nice.
Jim Barber, I'll send you a copy of it after the meeting. Jim, you're muted. There we go.
Okay, here I am back again. So I think you addressed right off the bat the first concern that we'd have. I've been down that driveway.
Yeah.
And it is an obstacle course. So putting in a brand new one straight into a parking lot makes a lot of sense, especially one that MainDOT agrees to. Max, is there anything in what Topsail presented to this planning board, was it 5 or 6 years ago now, in terms of sizes of events, numbers of events per year? Is there a go-by there that could be used to help create the formal application that would make
What's
some
the-
sense?
What's the zone? Is this 1A?
Yep.
1A, completely different than Topsail situation, which was
So-
residential.
But because of Topsail Farm, we did make sure to put in the new ordinance event centers, and there would be the small scale and the large, I think small and large ones. The small scale would be limiting to, I think it was 12 events a year, where if you have under 25 people, you can have unlimited, but once you go 26, you're only limited to 12 a year. And then there's the major events, where there's other differences, but for the large ones, pretty much the site could have more than 12 events over 25 people. So you could have one every weekend if he's doing the major event center, pretty much.
And, of course, it would be seasonal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only talking about 22 weekends, sort of maximum, is what wedding season is around here. And I'm good friends with everybody at Topsail Farms, and I've been inspired by what they're doing.
Max,
Well, that's-
will you, sorry, Jim.
I was just going to say, I just learned something. I didn't realize the limitations at Topsail, because it was before my time, or because that's a residential zone. So I learned something new. Go ahead.
So, so Max, remind me, the commercial Route 1 there, is that like so many feet back from Route 1? Or in other words, is the back of this property another zone? Is it rural, or?
It's all Route 1.
It's entirely Route 1, okay.
At worst, it might be the like very, very tip in the back, but from what's being proposed, it's all in Route 1A.
Does that,
I'd have to look at the map.
is there a cutoff to that? Like how far back it goes? Or is it
Yeah,
the whole lot?
I think your whole lot is in Route 1A, but I'd have to check. The proposal itself, all of it is in this one same district. That is guaranteed.
Yeah, I'm not going back further, much further than the end of the back field area there.
Yeah, that should be good. But I'll double check those numbers.
In terms of other concerns, the area that I picked out is there'd be no light stuff.
Noise,
nobody-
Sean?
Nobody would see it.
No noise considerations there?
I would have to see how that, works out. I saw that on Amazon, there's a decibel tester.
Yes.
I'm gonna haul some speakers out, check it
Gotcha.
out.
Okay.
I mean, what is, the town is 10 o'clock for noise or just,
I mean, it has different decibel levels at
Right.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
okay,
But it depends based on if the abutters are residential or commercial, and I believe that whole area is commercial. I don't think there's a residential person on your left or the right. So
I mean, Dana lives next door, but he's on the commercial lot there.
yeah,
I mean, and across the street is the wheat farm, and it's really it. I mean, there's,
it would probably fall under commercial then. So it's
yeah,
55 decibels, but that's from the property line. So if you're playing music all the way deep inside the property line,
Yeah.
and it barely travels all the way to Route 1, then
yeah, and I don't have an exact measurement on where the spot is that I put the tent up. it would have to go through essentially like 2 tree lines to get to Dana's house. And a pretty good chunk of distance. I'm also curious to see how that actually measures. I don't know. Because, you know, some nights I can hear duck puddle, but you know, the campground, you know, that, but they also have like, you know, that's like a concert.
Guys, you need to excuse me for just a minute. I see we're on the edge of getting some rain. I got to close some windows.
Oh, yeah.
Give me just 2 minutes and continue, but that's where I am.
Yeah, I also would like to know what you are expecting tonight. It's very hard to look at this project without any kind of rough site plan in front of us, and Jim and I don't have one.
That's my fault. That's my fault.
Basically, I was just excited to come and talk to you guys and get the plan in front of anybody. Is there time to get it on the next meeting?
Yes, so it can be on the next agenda. There was some back and forth on whether it's a pre-application or not. And it was too late to do a formal application, but then we had the rescheduling, and 30 Mangtown was something that could be done very quickly, and it was actually done very quickly. So I figured we could at least get Shane here now for a pre-application if there was time. And then if there were any main notes you all might have, like I think noise is what's pretty much
Noise is big.
what was expected.
Yeah.
So if there are any other items, we can at least have that prepared by the next meeting. And then that would be the formal site plan.
So is there a process for checking that now? Like, how do I go about testing that?
Testing
Noise?
Well, you get decibel meters
Yeah.
and you can, I suppose you could play some music over a speaker and just walk back and you'll get a reading.
You know, because I mean, the problem with the wedding industry stuff is I've got a book now for next summer.
I follow you.
So I haven't started any work. I don't, you know, this, like I said, it's very early, but I need to know that we're going to go ahead with this, and so that I can book it and people know they have a place to get married.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of bind on it.
I know, I mean, I know there's meters.
Yeah.
handheld.
Oh, yeah,
You
so
might
they're like
give- yeah,
$15 on Amazon.
That might be a place to start, just to give you a rough idea.
That'll be fun. I've got a bunch of big speakers.
Don't tell us that.
All right, so I'm sorry I missed part of that, but what are your plans for getting an application in front of us, or did you already discuss that?
So Shane actually does have an application, and I just didn't get it out to people to do a quick pre-application. But
Okay.
it's part of the bundles for the meeting in 2 weeks.
For the August one, I'm sorry, the August meeting, 2 weeks from now?
Yep.
Okay.
This was just more of if there was any immediate thoughts from the board, like the noise concerns. One thing that I'm going to point out is part of the request is the campground, 10 sites or less. That's something that Stan and I reviewed. I've already given Shane my notes on that. I don't know if the board would like to just have it all clumped together as one, or if you prefer Stan and I just approve the campground portion on our own, and then you guys will only handle the event center portion.
What campground? What are you talking about?
So that's the other half of the application, that
Oh,
there would
okay.
there would just be 10 sites even further in to the property, a lot further away from Route 1 itself.
Yeah, Max told me that there was, right now, without being a formal campground, I could do up to 10 tent sites in the woods. No electricity, no running water, just a campsite with a fire ring and a picnic table and trash cans and shared porta potties.
This might be a silly question, but is there any responsibility for noise to the people in the campground? Like, could you be introducing additional noise concerns by putting people in a
They would all
campground?
be
that
booked
close?
for the same event.
Okay, I'm just asking, like, if that,
No,
Yeah.
it'd be, the wedding venues that I see, a lot of them, like Topsail, try to accommodate the wedding party on site.
yeah, no, that
So
makes
you can
sense.
have
I
your-
just,
Your bridal party staying there. It's basically just can you have beds for people to stumble back to?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything that was gonna get in the way of like that decibel requirement based on like the commercial
Yeah.
zoning by having a campground there. I don't know. It would.
And it's not a campground like Dog Puddle. We're not
Right,
talking
right, yeah.
RVs. And it's a walk-in, hike-in situation. Or like.
Max, to answer your question, my thoughts would be that the planning board should only look at the event part of the application, but that there be full knowledge in that application that there's also a campground that you are addressing.
And
So we can see if there's anything that concerns us, but we won't approve the campground. We'll leave that to you and Stan.
And it is actually part of the application already, and I think it includes the specific standards for it anyways. So I will send out that application to everyone just as an email initially, and I'll send it in the physical bundles next week. But yeah, it does include the tent or campground. What term do you use for this?
In this group, if we have any questions, we're not going to be hesitant to ask. So good. Look forward to 2 weeks from now.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I
All
have.
right, we go.
Yeah, I think we're actually going to wrap up if you don't mind holding on for 5 minutes.
You got it. I'll wait till then.
Okay, we got 1 minute to approve the planning board minutes from May 12th. I think we've gone through them and commented on them. I know I did. Does anyone have any other? Max, you've looked at them, right?
Yes. I can't believe it was that long ago that we've done this.
Is there a bunch of things for us to sign? Haven't signed anything in a while.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, back in May, there was the retail store. But after talking with the attorneys and then the ordinance passing, that's no longer something that has to be approved anymore, although it probably should for the record. I don't think, I'm trying to think of the last item was that was approved. Oh, and then in March, there was the CCOT trucking, which that didn't get approved. And I think February there was something, but there wasn't anything in January. It's just been a long time since something was approved.
Okay.
I'll have to go through.
I recommend we approve these minutes as written.
Have a second.
Only once.
I second.
Johnny is
I
second.
second it, yes.
Johnny seconds it. Okay. Roll call around to vote in the approval. Johnny?
Aye.
Aye. Sarah?
Aye.
Aye.
Jeff?
I wasn't present.
You weren't present, so you abstain. Barbara?
Yep,
And I also approve. So that's 4 approvals and 1 abstention. Okay. Max, do we need, okay, so the first thing on a comment from planning board members, item A, the housing assistance. Max has given me a letter that he's written to Julie over my signature, which basically says that we don't have to wait, that there's no planning board approval for the demolition or rehab of the AD Gray School. We don't have any skin in that part of the game. We will on the construction when they come up for a permit for new construction, but we don't get involved with the demolition. Does anyone disagree or take issue with that before I sign it to send it back to Julie?
I just have one concern. When they're gonna demolish the building, correct?
Yes.
And we know it has mold in it and asbestos.
Yes.
And my concern was from a health perspective, do they have the ability to let the abutters know, or how do they know that they're doing that in the safest, most salubrious manner?
So for this process, half the money is actually going to the demolition and the other half does go to the remediation process.
Right.
And what happens is this is money that we're getting from the state, and then we reimburse VOA for it. So when VOA does want to move forward with demolition or remediation, then we can send out notices to the.
So we will have, but we will never have an opportunity to question, I mean, to put that question, how they would safeguard. I mean, you have mold in the building. If you're going to
Right.
demolish it, what are the safeguards? And there's asbestos in there. And I'm just questioning, will we have any ability to ask, or how that process goes?
That will be what Volunteers America has to ask us and tell us before. they
Okay,
do
no,
that.
no, I'm just looking at it from
No, I'm
a
just,
safety perspective.
right, no,
that's all.
I guess I was just confused on that. So VOA will be telling us when they want to demolish it and how they're gonna demolish it.
Right.
And then when we say, okay, that's good, then they can go forward with that.
That's it.
And
So Max, when you say they'll be telling us, who are they speaking with? Julie, with the select board?
Myself, Julie, myself, select
Stan?
board, Stan, Peg, the finance director, but that's because she's more on the record keeping side of things. But yeah, it's pretty much any town staff member. But it will
And
be-
as citizens, we can direct questions and concerns to the town staff.
Yep.
John, if you wanted to, not as part of the planning board, but just as a resident, hey,
Yep.
what's going on?
Good
Is
point.
my recollection right, Max, that the asbestos has already been remediated?
I have to remember the whole bit. There is actually an environmental review for anyone who is interested in that property. But I believe I believe they did find traces, but it's not as bad as it was when they remediated it like a decade ago, but I don't know the levels of that.
Okay. I just remember it came up before. All right, so I've signed it. How do I get it back to you?
When I have to get your signature for 2818 Atlantic Highway, I can pick it up.
Perfect, perfect. To be on the safe side, bring along a spare copy
Perfect.
in case I can't find it, because I'm gonna put it someplace safe.
Will do.
All right, LD 2003. Talk to us quickly, or do you want to put it off till next time?
Very quickly, it's just that the state passed it, and pretty much everyone is saying how it's good intentions, but it does not give us a lot of time to put something in place to prepare for it. People are concerned about the short-term rentals being able to use it. People are wondering, who's going to push the boundaries to try and sneak something by and say, oh, this is allowed under LD 2003. So I'm working with other planners in the region to try and come up with some common solutions and everything. And that's probably something that's going to be brought to your attention maybe later for ordinance revisions. So we can try and aim for a June 2023 approval. And because of LD 2003, I assume we'll just table the lowering of the dimensional standards that was originally planned until we've addressed LD 2003 changes pretty much, unless anyone has any objections to that.
Okay.
I know the MMA said they're gonna put out a big white paper on that. Have you seen it?
I have not. I've been waiting on that too.
Well, I heard it from two lawyers that said they were gonna do it, so.
I think
Why use 5 words? I won't say it. Okay.
All right.
Good. Any other business, anyone? It's late. Thank you for your
Thank you.
participation and precious time. I think it is raining out now.
Yay.
Be careful going home. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second it.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye, aye, aye. Everybody says aye. Susan.